Okay guys, this is a quick video about some of the progress that we've made on the house, which is minimal, but it is some progress. Last few days, me and one of my guys have been working on the wood, the plywood on the walls with the steel. So I'm just going to, we haven't been filming the process of it, but I am going to stop and show you some progress and a little bit of our technique that we're doing. So I'm using, this is park maple. It's pretty common from the area I'm at. All together, I think I'm going to have about 35 sheets in these two walls. And what I first did initially is I went around, cut all the pieces up because I'm trying to use my fall off. You know, just use the scraps. So we cut everything in bulk. The pieces, scattered them, and then we were, you know, actually cutting them to fit. So I didn't want to try to sand in the joints, you know, where the pieces go. I like the shadow line that's in there so that, you know, it's cosmetic and it's you know, where two pieces go together, it's helping us out because we don't have to sand a joint. Let's take a look down this hallway real quick. I want to show you, like I said, it's going to be 35 sheets, and you're like, well, this is just one wall. It goes down the hall here too. So we have a long stretch down here on this hall, and all we really have done, we have the jambs in, and then some in-betweens, and a lot of the other parts cut. So, you know, we'll be back here in the next couple of days to try to finish this up. So this floor to ceiling down this wall, and then the other wall that we're in the living room is where the two are. So we're going to go back in the living room, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the technique. Okay guys, what we did on the jambs themselves, these are solid, and I just ripped this dado line in here, and we've laid this all out obviously to coordinate with how long plywood is and how, you know, where the splices need to be, and that's part of the pattern to it, is just the mere fact of how long plywood is and how it cuts up. Obviously, like I said, we're cutting up scraps. This tradesman can't afford to waste a bunch of materials, so I did cut these cosmetically for the grain to run down. It's not the same piece, you know. Hey, if I was making a specialty piece of furniture, we'd use the grain, it would go down, but it's just a fall off. It still looks good. Nobody will know the difference. But so these are two pieces here and here. We've got a splice underneath here, and I'll show you in a minute how we're doing that. I just ran some 1/4 inch underneath these pieces when we made them initially to hold them together. That's the way the top is also. It's two pieces, piece of 1/4 inch across the top, just to keep it in one piece, because we build these whole jambs at one time, the sides and the headers, and we stick those in the hole first, and then we basically tack them where we think they need to be off the window, and then that allows us to get all these other measurements. We kind of leave these loose. There's just nails on the side until we get these pieces attached to them. Then we start permanently nailing them in. I don't nail them in solid at first, because if I need to scoot them around or something, I got to be able to do that. So let me show you on the table over here what we're doing with these two pieces. So anytime I have a splice, we've just routed the two pieces of wood. It's just 3/8 down, 1/2 inch over. So when the two pieces of wood come together, we're just gonna leave a little shadow line in there. So we've got this right here, this splice. That's how all the sheets come together. Down at the bottom, and I'm gonna show you this, and I'll carry it back over there. What I've done, this is a one we messed up, but this is the lower piece. I dadoed in a line right here on the 45, and so the other tops and bottoms are 45, so then we just take that and it slides over, and it gets us that shadow line right there. Let me carry these over here and show you what I'm talking about. I ripped this piece of plywood here. Obviously it's on a 45. The sides were 45 all the way down to here. So it looks like this right here. It has a 45 on it. So then I made the second piece for the bottom on a 45, and then we just pushed it over like that right there to achieve our bottom shadow line. That's what I'm planning on doing up top too. I just think it's a little bit easier when I do all these in-betweens to run them all the way up with the 45s on them and do that same technique from the bottom. Stuff like this, it takes most of the morning, the first day, to figure out exactly how I'm going to cut it all up. It's difficult to get the game plan together. And then we spent that full day, the first day, cutting up material, and the second day we spent almost that second day cutting it up also. So nearly 2 full days of ripping up all the material, and today was the first day we actually installed stuff. So I feel like we have 2 more install days and this will all be finished. I didn't figure in the hound. He's been out here all day long too. So we have, each day we have 16 man hours and 8 hound hours. He's wore out. Okay, we're going to take a minute here just to look around on these jams, pan around, and so you can kind of get a view of the overall look in the window. So it's hard to see up top here. It's a little dark in the camera, but when you come down, you can see the finished product, how these tie together right there on the corner. There's one going down to the floor. Okay, another thing I want to mention is when we run these panels down, this did not fall on a stud. So even though these pieces lap together right here, that's not structural enough just to, you know, run a brad nail through that and expect it not to be spongy. So we just put some 1/2 inch behind there and glued it on there down behind that seam. The other thing is, all you painters that are watching this video out there are wondering what in the world we're going to do. On this Park Maple, what we're planning on doing is just a sand and sealer and a clear. We're not putting any stain color on it. So, I mean, this is, we got about 1 3/8 in there, so I feel like they can, you know, spray the sand and sealer, they can kind of rough it, and we should be good. And the other thing I want to mention is, on the bottom, we just routed this plywood. It's up 3/4 and 1/2 inch back. So there's basically a 1/4 inch left of the plywood down underneath here. There's some splinters right there. We'll fix those later, guys. Anyhow, this is to mimic our baseboard on our sheetrock, which I installed this Z-channel plastic piece for the sheetrockers, and they mudded over it. So it's the same depth. This goes back a 1/2 inch. It's up 3/4 of an inch right here. So this same cosmetic look right here is on our wood wall on the bottom of it. So that's what we're going for. Okay, another thing I wanted to mention is hound's wanting to scratch. Sorry, we got to keep our priorities straight. We've just got one brad nail, or one nail in here, somewhat straight edging this. Then when we stick these, when I miter these boards and put these on here, it will fit the joint right here. So this might move up or down. It's probably pretty accurate where it's at. But this void underneath here, I don't just leave it. What I do is I'll pack it full of construction adhesive. I'll stick the tube up underneath there and just, I'll put several huge blobs underneath there all the way down. And that way, once I've nailed the joint and we shoot this off and that dries, it won't be spongy on the back. That drives me nuts whenever, you know, the front will be solid because of the joint, but I don't want the back to be all wiggly. One other thing I might mention, when you guys use plywood, and we just hit these briefly with the sander, we haven't cleaned up our corners real good, but one thing you want to do, plywood is great, but if you're building on a project with it, what we do on the job site is when we glue a stretch of plywood, we don't just run a bead of glue right down the middle. We'll run that glue on there, and then we take our finger and we smear it all the way to the front of the miter. like that, because it's kind of brittle. Plywood is brittle on the front right here, but if you'll smear that glue to the front, and when you make the joint, a little bit will squish out, that's fine. Just sand it off right then, and then, you know, go back and put filler if you have a little hairline crack or something like this. But you don't want to just put a bead of glue down the back side. Roll it to the front, put your plywood together. It'll just protect these thin ply from chipping off easier than it would without it. I mean, it's still plywood. If you hang something up on it, it's going to chip. Thanks for watching, and I hope you find this interesting, and we'll wrap it up the next few days, and I'll post a total video online.